Welcome to Noel's Good Friend Show. I'm your host, Noel. It's a show where I invite my friends to talk about friendship, how to meet new people, and how to be a good friend. Today's episode is called New Girls in the City, and it's all about moving to a new city and making friends, specifically New York City. I'm joined today by my two guests, both of whom you've already met this season, if you've been watching. My first guest is a PR professional, a mental health and wellness advocate, and a very good friend. Please welcome Derrick.
Hi, guys.
My second guest is an animator, artist, and t-shirt designer, and my former neighbor. Please welcome Olivia.
Hey, guys.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. I thought you guys, well, first off, this is the first two-person guest episode, so we're making good friend history today. I thought you guys would be the perfect guests because all of us had moved here from a different city to live in New York. My first question is, where did you move from? How old were you when you moved? And what was the impetus or the driving force for you to move into this city?
So I originally moved from Houston, Texas. I graduated from Texas State University, turned 25 2 months after I moved to the city. And I would say what brought me to the city was definitely my job. I ended up graduating around the time of the peak of COVID. So December 2020. Was lucky enough to have an outside graduation around that time. And luckily enough, I did land a full-time job that was based in New York. I was able to do 2 internships throughout my college career. So one was based in Austin, and then the second one was based in New York. I think the New York internship was kind of what got me in the door for New York facing PR agencies. Oh, he had somewhat of a New York experience or whatever. And it was more enticing to them, I would say.
How about you, Olivia?
Well, I graduated in 2020, doing undergrad. In 2022, I graduated with my grad degree. I did this internship that was remote and based in New York. And after the internship, they were whenever you graduate, you have an offer, basically. I had lived in Savannah, Georgia for school for I think 5 years. Before that, I was from Tennessee. I was this country mouse is ready for the big city. I was ready to leave.
I moved here at 23 years old, a year after I graduated college. And it was a time where I went to school for film and photography, but couldn't find a job. I noticed that for every one film photo job, there was 10 design jobs. So I just kind of let me make a design portfolio and see what's up. I was fully prepared to actually move to Baltimore. I moved here from Maryland. The first internship that got back to me was a job here in the city. And, I thought it was just what are the chances? I was only supposed to be here for 3 months. 3 months turned into 6 years. And, I've been here since. Before I moved, I took a taxi on the way back to the buses to go back to Maryland. And I told them that I got a job here. And they got really, really excited for me. They said that's kind of half the battle. It's finding the opportunity that brings you here.
Yeah.
None of us did it, but I do want to at least recognize that there's a sizable amount of people that just save a ton of money. They're going to take these savings and live off of it for however so many months and to just try to find a job while they're already here, which does happen a decent amount of time. So yeah, my next question is, did you already know people here before you moved?
Honestly, I did not know anybody moving out here. That my dad told me there was one of my cousins who lived in upstate New York, and to this day, still have not met up with them. But ironically enough, I had posted I was moving to New York. I think it was on Instagram or something like that, maybe Twitter. One of my old middle school and high school classmates, she was moving the same weekend as me, same move-in date, everything. But I was kind of my only person that I knew that was going to be in New York.
Damn, that is brave. I knew a lot of people, fortunately. I went to school in Savannah, Georgia. There's obviously no design jobs in Savannah, Georgia, or anything art related. It's pretty much a college town. So everyone kind of either went LA or New York, especially for animation. I knew I think probably 5 or 6 people, probably 3 of those I went to college with.
How did it feel those first few months after arriving in the city?
I'm realizing I also should have penned that with, I also moved up here with an ex. So I did have a built-in, I guess I just blocked that out.
You repressed it.
Yeah, self-censored that. So I did have at least one close person with me that was kind of experiencing everything with me for the first time, which was a nice intro to New York, to have someone that wanted to do all that stuff with me, but also kind of hindered a little bit meeting new people.
Derek?
I would say like it was definitely a difficult time like moving to New York when I first got here just because it's like I'm from Houston, Texas, more so like a southern background. People don't really like the southern hospitality in New York. So I
Mm-hmm.
would say it was a little bit difficult just trying to like navigate that the stigma of like New York people like, oh, New York people are just so rude, like they're just mean. Blah, blah. I want to say like I have not really experienced anything like that at all. Like I feel like people in New York just mind their business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, those first few months, yeah, and for me, speaking on my own kind of like living situation when I first moved, I ended up finding an apartment that was like a co-living space, which is, yeah, it's like a set of, so for those unfamiliar, a co-living space is basically, it's an entire apartment, but you rent out each room. And so like all of your guys' leases are independent of one another, which
Yeah.
really worked for me because, I only knew for a fact that I was going to be in the city for 3 months. So I was able to just sign up for 3 months.
How many
Um,
people did you have in your co-living space?
I had 3 people.
Oh, that's
Um,
not bad.
Eight.
oh my God. Oh wait, I think,
Yeah.
wait, what was the co-living space? I feel like I know what the
It was common.
Common. Yes, yes.
Eight.
Mm.
I've known
That's
people who
sick.
lived in
And then,
Common.
oh
Yeah,
my God.
it's like a dorm vibes, like from because yeah, I visited
Isn't that like
somebody.
literally twin beds? That one?
No, like there was like
Okay.
all like with eight individual rooms, and then there was there was like almost like 2 to 3 communal bathrooms, and then like all the
Mhm.
other restrooms they had their own restroom within their bedroom, so that was
Oh my
nice.
God.
I was the one with the restroom in my bedroom,
Oh, that's
so
nice.
I was still
Thank
grateful for
God.
that.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's really nice, right? If you don't know how long you're gonna stay in the city, this is actually like some actionable, I feel like, advice. It's like if you want to move to the city and just get a feel for it, it's perfect for students, for example, who like are studying in the city for a semester. So my roommates in that co-living space were a lot of international students, and it was like this revolving door of like roommates. It was like I knew a tattoo artist, and then a chef, an aspiring actress. It was like kind of like a crazy kind of home. But yeah, I mean, I ended up getting really, really close to the people I lived with that summer. Like we just hung out all the time. But I didn't account for me staying longer than they would. So I just kind of stuck with them. But eventually the summer ended. They went back to Canada where they were from. And then so I kind of like didn't have friends again. And so I had to start over. And a lot of my experiences in making friends was a lot of stops and starts, to be honest. Next question. What were the biggest surprises for you upon moving to New York? For better or for worse? Derek?
Um, the biggest surprises, I would say, the transportation system, for better or for worse.
Mm-hmm.
Just trying to, I was just trying to figure out on my own, 'cause, like not really like knowing anything. I was just seeing Apple Maps, and then even then, I was like, oh no, you need to use Google. You need to use Google.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
great. And then honestly, just like navigating the different stops of whether you're going like downtown Brooklyn or you're going
Mm-hmm.
upstate or not upstate, like into the city.
Yeah.
There had been multiple times where I was on the wrong train, just swiveling on my phone, and I realized like, oh, I'm going the wrong way.
That's so real.
I
Uh,
would say that's the thing that I struggled with a little bit the most. And then also just finding the community that you would want to be around.
mm,
I would say coming to New York and not knowing anybody, it's like, where do people go hang out? Like, what are the activities that other people do? Like, you don't
mm.
really have that community where you can just be like, oh, let's hang out, like, just chill at your apartment or whatever.
Right, right.
So something along those lines.
I mean, to that point, really quick, it's like a couple things. I also struggled with transportation. One of my biggest surprises, though, is like I think the kindness of New Yorkers.
Yes.
That's the biggest surprise to me. And Derek, you've already mentioned it, but it kind of relating to that transportation thing. A couple weeks into moving into the city, I had been standing at a platform, like waiting for like a train. You know what I mean? And it was like, but it was the same, whatever train that was coming through over and over again. I guess this lady had noticed that I'd been standing there and was like, "What line are you looking for?" I think I was on the L line, and I was like, "Oh, the M." She's like, "Baby, that's upstairs." And so like, I was waiting for a train that was never gonna come. But yeah, so yeah, I think people are a lot more helpful and kind. I mean, I probably also, I was 23. I'm of my stature, so like I probably look like a little lost puppy dog. So I think people did extend me quite a bit of grace. But Olivia, biggest surprises, better or worse?
I think my like biggest thing I kind of struggled with a little was more not even necessarily New York specific. It's just kind of like the little crisis of being freshly graduated, and I moved to this place I had been wanting to move for a long time. I had this great job that I was super excited about. I was like in a city with my friends again, and it just kind of felt a little bit like, okay, what now? Like you kind of lose the structure of school. You don't really have like a thing you're working towards, and you've kind of like achieved a lot of the things you wanted to achieve. And so it's like, where do I want to invest my time now? Like, what is the community I want to be around now? Because obviously community looks very different than like hanging out in dorm rooms and stuff in college. So I think it was just a little bit of adjusting to be an adult in a place that was so fast paced and where you really have to kind of have your shit together to both, survive. It's adult on hard mode, I think.
I've literally said those words verbatim before, which is like, I picked the hardest place to start being an adult.
No. Legit. Because, I want to say to, like, Olivia's point, it was about, like, it's like not having that structure or just, like, that set schedule that you would normally have, like, back in college, like, trying to figure that out in, like, this new, in this AKA hard adult life. So, yeah, just wanting to have that structured schedule so you can just, like, be on your P's and Q's.
Yeah, and can I just say, hard mode for reasons of like, it's the little things that also become like, I find grocery shopping in the city like a journey in and of itself.
Thank you. No, literally, thank you for bringing that to my attention, because grocery shopping in New York City is literally hell. Because why am I getting on a train and a bus to walk to talk, and then I'm getting back on the train and the bus with frozen food items, and it's taking me an hour to get back to my apartment? I'm just like, I need to make more money so I can get groceries delivered.
Right.
This is not okay. This is not okay.
No, because you're like pulling this little cart, and for people who live in like in places where you drive, like you just have like your car where you chuck all your stuff in the back seat or like in the trunk. Whereas for us, we have to lug around like a cart for your groceries or a tote bag with all sorts of your stuff. And so yeah, it feels very like, I don't know, like medieval peasant vibes where you have to like lug all your stuff with you everywhere. So yeah, it's definitely adulthood in hard mode. But I mean, I guess we've stayed alive and we're still here, so that it's got to mean something, right?
It counts for something.
Right.
Yeah, we figured it out.
But we're gonna take a quick break, but please stick around. There'll be more Olivia and Derrick on Noel's Good Friend Show. Welcome back. You're here on Noel's Good Friend Show, and I'm here with my good friends Derrick and Olivia. Today we're talking about moving to New York City and specifically about meeting people and making friends. So how did you go about meeting new people in the city, Derrick?
So for me, the whole common living space, like living with 8 people, I was like, I got to connect with at least 1 or 2 of these people in here. Like, it's 8 people living here. So I kind of just went about connecting with some of my roommates first. I was able to connect with 3 of them. All of our leases were kind of like ending around the same time. And then like we had been hanging out like on weekends or whenever we just had the time to, and we just decided to move out into a new apartment together. So I feel like that was kind of like my start of like bonding and making those friendships. And
if I may, like, I feel like common the co-living space seems like a reasonable step after like college, right? Because like it's kind of like a dorm, and it's you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So I guess it's nice to kind of like transition from a living situation that is a little bit similar to what you had before. Olivia, how did you go about meeting new people?
A lot of it was friend of a friend, since I already had some friends that had been like living here for a couple years. I tried doing like the Bumble BFF thing, but that didn't go so great for me. I think I didn't meet a lot of people doing that. I think the best way is kind of what we talked in our episode, like putting yourself in environments where you're having like some sort of consistency, like making sure you have similar interests. I did a lot of like coffee shop things, like at Nook, like the makers meet.
Right.
So yeah, I think it just kind of finding places for community that kind of reminded me of school a little bit really helped.
When I first moved, I had a hard time interacting with like those kind of like communists. Because I lived in a neighborhood that didn't have as many young people. It was in the south of Brooklyn, which is like a lot of like people who've lived here for a really, really long time, and they have their own communities and, you know, like working class families and stuff like that. So for me, I didn't know it at the time, but I guess in retrospect, the way that I was meeting new people was by dating. I was on Tinder and I had the intention to look for a partner or at least just a good
That's
time.
such the queer experience.
Right.
Literally.
So, yeah, I went on dates and then, maybe we'll, kind of be involved for a little bit, but then eventually it would transition into just more of a platonic friendship. I commend a lot of those friends that I met that way because like I wouldn't have been able to have somebody tell me that they only wanted to be friends and continue being friends with them. So it was always me being like, oh, our connection is more of like a platonic vibe. And they were just like, yeah, I'm totally fine to be friends. And I was grateful that they were cool with that.
Yeah. Because a lot of times it's not the same like response.
Right. I mean, to this day, I'm kind of like, sometimes I'll go on a date and, oh, this is it for another kind of topic. I'll cut this out, but I actually do want to share this with you guys. It's been my new rule now. If I go on a date and I tell them after the date, if it goes well, it's like, hey, if I actually mean this, if you want to see each other again, just hit me up, set up the second date. If you're not feeling it, you don't have to say anything at all. Like let
Permission
it be.
to ghost.
Yeah, permission to ghost. You know
Wow.
what I mean?
I
Yeah.
like that.
All
should
right.
keep that in there.
Yeah. Actually, I might. Okay. Actually, Olivia, I'm going to direct this question to you. How can someone find activities or groups that match their interests? You mentioned Nook and all these things.
Yeah, there is like no shortage of things to do in New York. Like if you want to find like a specific niche or interest, like you can find it. And I've also learned that like you can create that too. Last year I hosted like a little bingo event and a lot of people showed up for that. Me and my friend are working right now on creating like a another artists meetup that's kind of closer to where we live right now for like working artists and freelancers. If the thing that you want to be a part of doesn't exist, you really can make it. Obviously, it takes some comfort to like get there, but I mean, there's a lot of options, I think, in New York.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, like, there's a lot of like technology involved with it too. Like, like I think there's this website Meetup. Is that Meetup?
Yeah, they also have like 222 or whatever, which is you can meet a bunch
Angel
of people,
numbers.
like random angel numbers. You can meet a bunch of random people for like dinner and like mingle with them. Yeah, you're like paired with people based on your interests. So there's a lot of yeah.
How about you, Derrick? Yeah, did you find spaces where there were like sort of activities that you could share with people of the similar interests?
Yeah, I would say like kind of just like for me, it was more so just finding all the activities I just wanted to explore more, just like find those connections. So like going to yoga, going to the gym a little bit more. And I would say like going to concerts, like go to concerts by yourself for sure. Just because like you'll never know who you run into. Like I want to say I went to an LSD car pop-up concert the other day. I went by myself. And I was like, well, I'm going to mix in. I feel like every time I go to an event, I'm just like, you know what? I'll find at least one person that I connect with. And then lo and behold, I did. And we connected. We just talked throughout the whole night. And it was just like a great experience. Finding outlets of things that you want to do, things that you're comfortable with. And even if you have to go alone, like go ahead, do it alone.
You mentioned something that's really important. It's like there's someone out there who also went alone, who is needing company.
And I would also say there is this other app that I recently discovered. Kind of like the same thing that Common did. Like it asks you like personal questions, like favorite color, what's your activity that you like to do. And it pairs you up with 4 other people and you guys just like all go out to like a restaurant and it's like an activity afterwards. And I think it's like, it happens like every Wednesday or every other Wednesday. And it's like five groups of 5 different people. And like at the end of it, you guys kind of like all meet up at like this activity bar or whatever. And it's like mixed and mingled throughout that space. I literally forgot the name of it.
Pause. Can we Google this? Okay. The app is called Time Left, to the curious. Actually, in the end, you guys meet up in a fight club and you guys like beat the shit out of each other. And then everybody comes home, bruises. Nobody talks about it.
That
you
would
just come
be
to
the
work.
ultimate plot twist.
You got a black eye, and you just have to eat that. You have to pretend like it didn't happen. Have you ever experienced friendship mismatches? Like when you first moved to the city, did you find that you made certain connections that over time didn't stick?
I would say it was a mismatch necessarily. It was more so just like, we had a moment at like an event or something like that, or went through a birthday party. And, it was like a cute little time. We followed each other on Instagram. And then, like, we see each other like every now and then. And it's never bad vibes, or just like, oh, like, we just didn't have like that strong connection towards like we're going to be like moving forward to be like best of friends. Or
I want to punctuate that is okay to have, you know what I mean, to eventually grow out of like certain connections. And some of it is like connections that you needed at particular periods of your life, especially here. I gotta say, I feel like I was the king of friendship mismatch at one point. And, I think that's why I kind of take pride in like having built a community around myself, because it was forged through a lot of trial and error, especially because of how I was meeting people. I want to contextualize it too. I worked really like long hours when I first moved to the city. And so, I didn't really have time to kind of like go to certain, community events and stuff like that when I first moved, because I was just really tired after work. So dating was this thing that felt like, it was like, it was on my phone. Like I could like swipe around, meet people. And it was also in the service of, right, like meeting different people, you know what I mean? And for the purpose of dating. So it was kind of like I was, in retrospect, kind of trying to knock out two birds with one stone. Like, and yeah, because of the way I was meeting, I had a ton of mismatches. I got like, because we'd go on the date, and then maybe we had different expectations, or right, I'd want to be friends, they didn't want to be friends, or they said they'd want to be friends but actually didn't. And I think in many ways I didn't really quite know who I was at the time yet. I didn't know who I'd fit in with and who I'd be compatible with. I think, I hung out with friends who's like, especially within the gay community, like people like to throw shade and kind of tease each other. I'm extremely sensitive, and I don't like that. I don't like that.
In the area, I never really had gay friends, and so it's just like having those gay friends like that fun shade. I wouldn't say like I'm 100% sensitive, but it's like, is it necessary?
Yeah,
like, do we need to like? Because honestly, sometimes that shit is underlying. Like, you really feel this way about me, or whatever the case may be. And it's like, that's what we're not about to do. We're not about to play these games. Because if you don't like me, we don't have to talk. Like,
there's something about sensitivity. I spent so much of my life thinking, or being made to believe, that I was too sensitive. And so I tried to tough it out with people who I, in retrospect, just wasn't compatible with, or we just had different kind of expectations of what was acceptable, jokes and stuff like that. And I gotta say, the Good Friend Show, we are pro-sensitive here. This is safe to be as sensitive as you can. And it's just about finding those people who are willing to work within that sensitivity. Nobody's too sensitive in my eyes.
We don't have time for mean people.
Yeah,
Get them out of here.
That is my last question for this segment. How do you balance seeking new friendships while maintaining your sense of self? Like, do you feel like you've ever had to like adjust yourself in ways that weren't entirely you, just to kind of fit in within like a friendship?
I think that's the hard thing when you first move in, or like move somewhere new, is like you're kind of like, oh, well, I want to, like go out or something. I don't know. I want to explore. And so you kind of put on this like different version of yourself when moving somewhere new. And I think for me, the thing that kind of like took me out of that is like I had like a big transition when me and the ex I moved here with broke up. And I was kind of like, you know what? Like I gotta start making some changes. I gotta make my own friends and figure out myself before, I can make some good friends. I think, you really have to have like a solid sense of identity and like know your interests and know like I think your energy too. Like, like if you're not like a going out kind of person, like if you're not like a like club person, like don't find friends that want to go to the club all the time. Like you got to find people that can match your energy really well, at least really close friends. Like you can have, your party friends or whatever, but yeah, I think there's a lot that has to happen with yourself before you can make that like good group of friends.
Derrick?
Whenever you do realize, or get into that realization of, I don't want to do this like all the time, or I don't want to do, I just don't want to do that. The same discernment, I want to say this last episode, it's like literally having that discernment about yourself, knowing yourself 100% through and through, what you want to do, what you don't want to do, and kind of just standing on that. And being able to have friends that are able to accept those boundaries.
What's bringing it up for me is that, and we kind of touched on it through the episode, is for one, I do think it's okay to move into the city and try new things. That's kind of the whole point, right? Like to have a new experience. But then I think it's also okay to have a new experience and recognize I didn't really like that. You know what I mean? And it's okay to, like, I think for me, I used to like not have good experiences doing one thing or another. And I would like just try to force myself to like it, try it more than once. But then it's okay to be like, you know what? I've tried this enough times to know I don't like it. Another thing that fits into this is that whole idea of being comfortable with being by yourself a lot, especially here. Because trust me, you're going to want to be by yourself like a decent amount here because you're just so many people all the time, right?
So many weird people.
Yeah, but I think that comfortable, right? Oddities. But the necessity of being comfortable with being by yourself is that you're not desperate for companionship, because when you are not comfortable being by yourself, you end up getting involved with people that you're not compatible with, forcing yourself to be in situations that you don't really want to be in just because you want somebody to be there. But I think by and large, it is better to spend some time on your own, even just for a little bit, than to be around people that you are not compatible with and make you feel like icky. They don't feel like a good friend, you know? So we're going to take another break, but stick around. We'll be right back with more Olivia and Derrick on Noel's Good Friendship. Welcome back. We're here again on Noel's Good Friend Show with my good friends, Derrick and Olivia. We're talking about surviving and what it means to make it in the big city. What's your best piece of advice for somebody trying to navigate the big city, especially if they've just moved here?
I would say like just take time to enjoy it and take time to figure out what it is that you like want to do here. Like whether that be, the kinds of places you like going, like even just like job stuff, like what you like to do for spending time with yourself. Like if you want to try a new like yoga class, like Derrick was kind of saying, or, if you like want to reconnect with like, I don't know, like nature or some sort of hobby that you've maybe like not been able to do in another city, like, taking time to figure all that out.
My advice would be to try to understand the law of the land here as quickly as you can.
Yeah.
Like New York City is like a very, very unique ecosystem. There's extreme wealth in this city and there's extreme poverty. There's so many different, like within the queer community alone, there's like different scenes. Being curious in an anthropological sense about like the environment, and so that you can have a deep understanding of where you want to be in it. So you're not drawn into some of like the fantasies or measures of whatever success or belonging. I think remaining authentic to yourself can be really hard here because there's so many influences pulling at you. So I think, just having a curiosity about what's going on and then making sure that it's always measuring up to your own values is what I would say. How has moving to New York City changed your perspective on friendship?
It definitely has changed my perspective on friendships just because when you're living at home, it's like it's kind of easy to be with your friends. Like you easily just like hit them up to like hang out or just like go to the movies like on a day-to-day basis. And I would say like in New York, you're not going to see like your main group of friends every day. So it definitely has changed my perspective to a sense of where it's like, even if you can't hang out, like immediately, like you were thinking about them, reach out to them, just like have like a quick little conversation, just to let them know that you're thinking of them and that you do value the friendship that you guys have created, reaching out whenever you can, making those plans to hang out, even if it's like, like a month in advance, but honestly, just making the time and doing what you can to see your friends.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like I've learned a lot about effort and intention in my friendships here. You really have to make an effort to reach out and try to, connect.
It's shifted my perspective on what accounts for good friendship. I try not to take things too personally. I do sometimes still, but in a very normal human way. For me, the way I measure closeness or like whether or not I perceive somebody as a good friend is the degree of vulnerability I feel I can have with that person. You know what I mean? Because both of you guys, honestly, sometimes like we go like a couple weeks not seeing each other. But it's like every time I see you guys, it's still the same kind of like access. And like, I still want to share, very similar things about like my life. I'm focusing on the quality of the time that we spend together than the quantity of times we hang out. So.
Exactly.
What are you most grateful for about living in New York City?
For me in my career and just like personal, just like the networking and the just like the amount of amazing different people that you come across. Just like a sight to see just because we're all different human beings and we all just
Hmm.
come from different backgrounds. And there's certain moments where it's just like you're out in the club or it's like at a bar, like you're having like a great one-on-one moment or you're with your friends and you just have this realization. It's like, yeah, like I love it here.
Feels like a movie. There are times where I feel like, oh, girl,
A
this is
legit
fab. Like,
movie. It's
my life is
crazy.
fab. Crazy. Olivia?
Yeah, I agree. It would be hard for me to move somewhere else because, like, as
Yeah.
an artist and stuff, like, there would be no other place, I feel like, where there's such a population of people doing art and creative people that are, like, super passionate. I love that community so much.
For me, it's what other place would I get the opportunity to meet all these different people who come from so many different places, right? I'm really grateful that this place, for what it embodies, has given me the opportunity to meet people like you guys. Where else would we have met? Are you a New York for life person, or do you envision yourself moving somewhere else at some point?
I think it would be hard for me to move somewhere else at this
Yeah.
point. It's always felt like the place to be for what I want to do. But I've wondered sometimes if like the fast pacedness will like get to me and I'll want to slow down because you'll meet some people that have been like, I was here for 10 years and then I moved out to somewhere else, suburban or something. But for now, it's hard to envision me being anywhere else.
For me, it's like 50-50 because
Yeah.
I definitely wanted to come to New York for my career. And I feel like it's definitely like a good place to be and just like build those connections and kind of like make a name for yourself before moving on to like the next place. I've always had a timeline of New York, California, and then settling down in Chicago, just like going back to my roots. Um, and I would say, yeah, like it can be hard because I told myself I was going to be in New York for about, 3 to 5 years. I'm coming up on 3.5, almost 4 years. And it's just like, wow, I'm still here. It would be hard to like move to a different area, just finding those activities, finding that community, making those friends, like starting over is very scary. So definitely New York for now. And eventually we
Who
shall see.
knows? I remember when I first moved to the city, I would meet people and then they would say, "Oh, I've been here for 5 years." And I remember thinking distinctly, like, "Oh, I can't imagine living there for this long." You know what I mean?
Right.
A lot of it because I wasn't confident in my capacity to stay here this long. Like, I didn't think I was tough enough for it, to be honest. But I'm going on 6 years in June. Like I feel like I can't believe I've far exceeded my own expectations of myself of how long I'd be here. Definitely New York for now. There's nowhere else in the world I would rather be personally. Whether or not it's New York forever is something that I'm allowing the circumstances of my life to define for me. And this is not about feeling full of myself or whatever, but it's really just about gratitude. People say like, oh, New York City is their favorite city in the world. In some ways, I feel like I'm New York City's favorite person. in that I have tried to leave this city so many times, like during like peak COVID, or like I didn't have a job or something, that I was like about to leave the city, and then something miraculously happened that kept me in the city, like another job, another opportunity, something came along. And so being here is a bit of a conversation, like between you and your environment, and it will tell you when it's time to come. I mean, for me, I felt like I was called here. And I think it will also tell me if it's time to go. But for now, I think we're going steady.
Okay.
Have you felt like you've made it in the city, or is there, or is there something that would make you feel like I've done what I've needed to do here?
I definitely feel like I have not made it in the city because I feel like, well, no, to a certain extent, I feel like I was trying to up the ladder of like when I quote unquote made it. Like
Yeah.
I want to say people like want a brownstone to like live in. I was like, my first apartment was the common living. It was a brownstone. So I was like, hey, knock that off my list. I would say like in the career aspect of it, I was like, I'm definitely not at the peak where I would like to be in my PR career. I'm always going to be trying to climb that ladder and just like one up on like quote unquote I've made it. So like once I made it, it was like, okay, what's the next thing? Like, you've made it. So yeah, definitely continuing to strive for that.
Mm. Olivia?
Yeah, I almost feel like I went in reverse a little bit. Where I like when I moved here, I had this like job that I was, super excited for, and I
Mm.
ended up like, living alone in like a studio apartment. And then I kind of, took a step back and was like, okay, I'm actually going to live with a bunch of roommates because I want to save money. And I think, there's always different definitions of like making it. Like I feel really happy right now, and in like a different way than I felt happy previously when I had things that I might have considered different milestones of like making it. I think there's always room to grow here and
Mm.
room to figure out like what the next step is and what it is that you want next, because you're always growing. So
Mm.
I am happy to say I have not made it here
Mm. Mm.
in a way.
There's always going to be another mountain. I'm
You're always
always going to want to make it move. There's
it's always
always
an
going
uphill
to
battle.
be an uphill battle. Sometimes I'm going to have to live. In the words of the great Miley Cyrus. But no, I mean, here's the thing. I feel like I've made it externally in the external expectations of what that means for a creative. I came to the city, I got to work, it's like incredible design jobs, some big boy companies, whatever. But I think that's what I initially came here to do. But I realized that there was a sort of discrepancy between like what felt like achievement from an outsider's perspective and one that felt like an internal fulfillment, personal fulfillment kind of thing. So I think I've made it in terms of like, I'm gonna be a designer, and I think in perpetuity, should I continue this career, I can continue being a designer, God willing. But I think what it means to feel fulfilled in like my creativity and the things that I want to make, I think this show is part of, in the service of like trying to make art that speaks to me. That I don't feel like I've made it, And so yeah, I'm also happy to say that like there's so much more to come that I'm excited for. So yeah, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you guys so much for joining me. The first 2-person episode. Give you guys a round of applause through through technical difficulty and all. To you at home, thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you for being a good friend. I'm Noel, and this is Noel's Good Friend Show. Till next time.